Mormonism potentially being like the number one religion. I know you consider it to be the same thing as Christianity, I would tend to agree. It's just another denomination of it. But he was saying that it would be like the number one religion by like the year 2100 or something like that, if it keeps growing at the pace that it's growing. And that was fairly recent. And I believe another professor in religion, his name is Rodney Stark, I believe his name is. He works at Baylor University. He also said that if the Mormons, if they keep growing at their current pace, they will be, one of the top religions in America. So you may be outpacing the Christian Transhumanist Association in a few years now with the growth of it. And I think that has a lot to do with this, I guess, disdain for tradition. Not that Mormons aren't traditional. However, I get the sense, more open, because you guys accept new scriptures. You guys will accept, new prophets, whereas, other Christian denominations look at that as blasphemous, that the, canon that's set in stone, the Old Testament, New Testament, it is what it is. But they fail to realize that, you go to the Catholic and Orthodox Bible, they have an additional like 7 or 9 books or something like that, the Apocrypha, and then that was later done away with by the Protestants. So it's just an evolution of the book. And so, I like that about the Mormons, that you guys are open to that. That makes a lot of sense to me. Now, where I want to go into next, because I know that you emphasize that Mormons are Christian, but you guys have 2 different churches in the transhumanist movement. So could you maybe describe or explain the differences between Mormon transhumanism and the Christian transhumanism?
Yeah. So this will be an interesting exercise. Yeah, I'll do my best. First of all, I would say that a key emphasis, I'm going to say emphasis rather than difference, because there are other Christians who also believe this, but their groups, even if they individually tend to emphasize it as much as Mormons do, as a group, they don't. So a key emphasis of Mormonism is theosis, the idea that humanity can and should become like God. And in Mormonism, that is interpreted in a way that tends to be much more literal and more substantial than among most other Christians who continue to teach the idea of theosis, because other Christians do teach it. A lot of people don't realize, in fact, how broadly the idea of theosis continues to be taught among Christians. For example, in Catholicism, the idea is called divinization. It's still a doctrine of the Catholic Church, which of course is the largest organization in human history, the Catholic Church. And then in the Eastern Orthodox tradition, they call it apotheosis. But neither of them emphasize it as much as Mormons, and neither of them attribute as much literalness or substance to it. And what I mean by substance in this case is that in Mormonism, God is embodied in the most literal way. God is embodied like you and I are. Mm-hmm. Now, Mormons still hold to the notion that God is, a lot of Mormons would say omnipotent or omniscient, using the old Greek words. But what Mormons really mean by that, they're not really delving into Greek philosophy when they say that. What Mormons really mean by it is that God is super, super powerful. In fact, powerful enough to create worlds, and super, super intelligent. In fact, intelligent enough to create worlds. Far more intelligent than us, far more powerful than we are, but is still an embodied being, as tangible as the body that you and I have, our scriptures in Mormonism say. So in Mormonism, we emphasize this idea that humanity should evolve into, and we don't use the word evolve so much. That's me as a Mormon transhumanist using the word evolve. What most Mormons would say is progress from our current state of being into the state of being of Godhood. And that we look at Jesus as the example for that, the primary example for that. And so when we imagine ourselves progressing into godhood, it's not just becoming more intelligent and more powerful. It's primarily becoming more compassionate. That's a key virtue that all of Christianity emphasizes, and Mormonism likewise emphasizes in our estimation of what it means to become like God. So we emphasize embodiment, we emphasize theosis, and most of the rest of Christianity does not emphasize those things. Now, if we go to Christian transhumanists, you'll actually find that quite a few non-Mormon Christian transhumanists still emphasize the embodiment of God and still emphasize the idea of theosis. So there are among Christian transhumanists people who emphasize those even as much as some Mormons do, but not all Christian transhumanists do. Some will be more traditional. They will talk about human capacity to progress, become much more than we are now, but not really to become God. Mm-hmm. They'll stop short of that. They'll be uncomfortable with that idea, as are many people in the traditional Christian interpretations. And some of them will kind of go more the direction that some traditional Christians go and de-emphasize the embodiment of God and think of God as more of a spirit or an idea, or, some people interpret the Trinity as in an entirely immaterial sense. And you'll find that among religious transhumanists, Christian transhumanists as well. So that will be a key kind of